Special meeting, San Diego LAFCO, November 4th meeting, I'll call to order. Roll call.
Commissioner Salas is absent. Commissioner Desmond?
Here.
Commissioner Jacob is absent. Commissioner Percy?
Here.
Commissioner McKenzie?
Here.
Commissioner Willis? Commissioner Vanderman?
Present.
Commissioner Wells is absent. Alternate Commissioner McNair?
Here.
Alternate Commissioner Cox is absent. Alternate Commissioner Kate is absent. Alternate Commissioner Lump?
Here.
Alternate Commissioner McKenzie? Mathis, I'm sorry. Alternate Commissioner McNair will vote in place of Commissioner Wells, who is absent. There's a form.
Thank you. At this time, please rise at the pledge of allegiance by alternate Commissioner McNair.
Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item number 3, are there any changes or rearrangement of the agenda?
None for staff, thank you.
Thank you. At this time, public comment. I think we do need to approve the agenda as presented. Is there a motion?
I'll move to approve the agenda. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Vanderman?
Yes.
Commissioner Percy?
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie?
Yes.
Commissioner Willis?
Yes.
Commissioner Salas is absent. Commissioner Wells is absent. Commissioner Desmond?
Yes.
Commissioner McNair?
Yes.
Commissioner Vanderman?
Oh, I thought I said yes. Yes.
5 in favor, the motion passes.
Thank you. Public comment time. Now is the time on the agenda, excuse me, for anyone to address the commission on any item that is not on the agenda. Is there anyone who would like to speak to anything of pertinence that is not on the agenda? And I have one speaker slip, Sandra Farrell. Residents of impacted by. Okay. I don't think you're on.
Is it my phone?
One step.
Thank you.
Now it's better.
That's
Yeah.
better.
One of the things, I know San Marcos hasn't updated its sphere of influence for a very long time. And what I'd like to do is when you study that, I'd like to look at a couple of things. One, my street on Escondido, which is on a secondary ridge line, half of the street is in the Vista Fire Protection District and half of it is in San Marcos Fire Protection District. So what I'd like LAFCO to do is to look at putting the whole street in the Vista Fire Protection District. Vista is the closest serving fire station, and while they have mutual aid benefits, it really would make sense if our street along with the rest of our area were under one fire protection district. That's the first thing. And the second thing, I really like to look at the community character and the land uses that and the services that the county provides to both the city and the area of Twin Oaks, because we are a part of the Twin Oaks planning area. By the way, I am a member of the Twin Oaks Valley Community Planning Group, but I'm speaking as an individual today. But the images that you see are showing what the Twin Oaks community is like. It's quite a bit different from what the city of San Marcos is. The county, under the county, we received the fire protection districts, both for San Marcos and Vista. We received the sheriff's department, which is a county department. So these are services that specifically the cities don't provide, but the county does, as I understand it. So I'd like to look at in that sphere update, looking at possibility of rolling back the sphere to the city limits. The last reason why I'm asking for that is that people who live in the sphere areas, they're impacted by the decisions of the cities, but they can't vote for the city councils or get the representation through the city. So it would really be a benefit if we could look at those spheres and possibility of Twin Oaks, because of the differences, move it back to the boundary. Thank you.
Just-
We'll add you, Ms. Farrell, to Robert's doing a study right now on that update process. We'll add you, so you get an opportunity to see staff's work going forward and interact going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll mark your speaker slip and give it to the analyst who's doing that update. He'll have your number. At this time, we have item number 5. Is the consent items. Is there anything that the commission would like to have pulled? Hearing.
I'll move to approve the consent calendar.
Thank you.
Second.
Have a motion, have a second. Roll call.
Commissioner Vanderlyn,
Yes.
Commissioner Kersey,
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie,
Yes.
Commissioner Willis,
Aye.
Commissioner Desmond,
Yes.
Commissioner McNamara,
Yes.
6 in favor, 0 opposed, 1 absent, 2 absent, and the motion passes.
Thank you. At this time, item number 6 is the public hearing on the proposed San Marcos Highlands reorganization, the current annexations to the city of San Marcos, the Vista Fire Protection District, the Vallecillas Water District, and detachment from the Vista Fire and the Vista Irrigation District with the associated sphere. Staff report?
Thank you. Robert Barry will be providing the staff presentation.
Morning, Madam Chair, Commission members. We have a brief PowerPoint to illustrate the location of the project. This morning we have the San Marcos Highlands reorganization that's been initiated by a landowner. It involves annexation of approximately 125 acres to the city of San Marcos. It also involves concurrent reorganizations for fire protection services and water and wastewater services, involving a detachment from the Vista Fire Protection District, concurrent annexation of 11 acres to the San Marcos Fire Protection District, and a annexation and detachment from Vista Irrigation District to Vallecillas Water District of approximately 45 acres for water and wastewater services. There we go. Illustrated in the red outline is the proposed annexation area to the city of San Marcos. The total acreage is 125 acres, which represents approximately half of the specific plan the city of San Marcos has adopted. Half of that specific plan is currently within the city. The 125 acres proposed for annexation will consolidate the remainder of the unincorporated territory for the development within the city. As you can see, the annexation territory is within the sphere of influence for the city of San Marcos and is directly adjacent to the Santa Fe Hills development to the south. Services would be extended through Las Posas Road, water and wastewater services from Vallecillas Water District to serve the development. City of San Marcos has adopted a specific plan, a revision of that specific plan, which allows for a development of up to 189 single-family residential units on the site. This is an overhead shot of the proposal area involving the annexation territory to the city of San Marcos. Just a little background on the project. This specific plan was originally adopted in 1988 with an environmental impact report from the city of San Marcos, originally proposed approximately 275 units. That subdivision map was extended a couple of times and was ended up expiring without getting its final approvals. A revised specific plan was brought back a couple of years later. That went through the process, again was extended, but was unable to get its permitting from the state and federal wildlife agencies for the open space issues. The project, it was again revised down to 198 units in 2013, brought back to the city of San Marcos. At that time, the city wanted to do a mitigated negative declaration as a supplement to the previously adopted environmental impact report. Due to extensive comments from affected agencies, including LAFCO, City of San Diego, or San Marcos, determined to do a new environmental impact report for the project that catches it up to current legislative requirements and statutory requirements, and also brings the environmental review up to the current project of 189 units. Again, directly to the south is the Santa Fe Hills subdivision. This is also the adjacency to the city of San Marcos, and again, the project area is located within the sphere of influence. The concurrent reorganizations for services involve reorganization for fire protection services. The northern part of the project area is currently in the Vista Fire Protection District boundary and sphere. Approximately 11 acres will be detached, illustrated in red, and annexed to the San Marcos Fire Protection District. San Marcos Fire Protection District is a subsidiary district of the city of San Marcos, does not have a sphere of influence, so we will be removing it from Vista and Vista Fire Protection Sphere, annexing to San Marcos without a concurrent sphere amendment. The red area here is basically the footprint of the development area. Approximately about 50 acres will be developed into 189 units. The remainder will be preserved in open space. This footprint illustrates the area that will be detached from Vista Irrigation District and annexed to the Vallecillos Water District for water and sewer services. The footprint of that annexation area is relative to the development area where the wastewater and water services will be extended. There will be no additional extension outside of that boundary for those services into the open space. Oops, I'm sorry, I have to go back up. Oops, how do I get back? Okay, there we go. Again, with the reorganizations, there was an overlap with the healthcare districts between Tri-City and Palomar. However, there are other issues involved with reorganizing the healthcare district boundaries. We are going to defer that review to the healthcare district's service review and sphere update. The proposal in front of us today is subject to a master property tax exchange agreement between the city of San Marcos and the county of San Diego that will govern the property tax exchanges. Under CEQA, basically the October agenda comes back intact. The only change, we added an additional attachment to discuss LAFCO's role under CEQA as responsible agency. In that regards, we would follow the city of San Marcos' environmental determinations for their environmental impact report and adopt their findings, again, as a responsible agency. Sphere of influence changes would be exempt under the general rule because those spheres are planning tools and would not result in an extension of services or direct impacts. Also, we wanted to talk a little bit about the annexation agreement. One of San Marcos' conditions of approval for the development involved an agreement between the affected agencies, City of San Marcos, state and federal wildlife agencies, and the County of San Diego to establish terms for the challenge to the environmental determination made by the City of San Diego from the Environmental Habitats League. After discussions and settlement, an annexation agreement was achieved. It was recently adopted by the county as the last party involved. That sets up a 200-acre dedicated natural open space preserve, wildlife corridors, and other habitat protections for the open space area. That agreement removed the opposition from the local environmental groups, and all affected agencies have signed off on that agreement and its terms. That allowed for the hearing to continue forward once the county had a chance to adopt that agreement. And again, your November agenda report is basically the same as the previous report in October. There was also a question about local policies. LAFCO staff reviewed local policies in the context of the proposal. Primarily, they asked for commission consideration of extenuating circumstances in terms of adjacent agencies' concerns and the appropriate places for annexations within city spheres. Staff does feel that this proposal is in conformance with our local policies. We are recommending approval of reorganization without modifications to standard terms. Again, the commission would need to adopt the City of San Marcos findings as a responsible agency for the environmental impact report and approve the reorganization and conformance sphere changes. That's the extent of my report. I'd be happy to answer any questions if you feel like we have.
I just have one. Do we have a slide that shows the entire property? Everything shows what we're annexing and detaching, but to give a perspective of where and how the rest of the development, the whole thing ties in. Do you have a slide that shows
I
the whole
did not.
specific plan area that shows them, that area that's being annexed and detached and that which is in the city?
I did not have a complete slide to show the specific plan. The individual areas overlap themselves, so they get kind of confusing when you see them in total. The bigger area is the annexation of the city of San Marcos, which includes the smaller areas that are affected, but I don't have a slide of the entire area. The proponents of the project are going to be giving a presentation. I would imagine that they would have a complete map of the specific plan.
Any other questions?
Yes, Robert, how much area did you say was being preserved for wildlife?
You want to turn on your microphone?
It's on.
On?
Down's on.
No.
Up? No, down is on.
Down is
Down
on.
is on. Down is on.
Bad information on mine, I'm sorry.
I think it's on.
The overall
Just-
acreage
yeah.
for the specific plan is 293 acres, and I believe 210 of those acres are going to be within the dedicated open space preserve from the annexation agreement.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Alternates, any other questions? Okay. At this time, I'll open the public hearing. And we'll start with proponent, Matt Simmons. Before you start your time, do you have a timer?
Yeah, I'll just say one on that.
Okay, you want to put it here on the corner so they can see it and I can see it,
Okay,
right there?
this is the 3 minute,
This is 7 minutes.
7.
Actually, it's 5.
5 minutes. Oh, for 2 minutes.
Because the other half gets whatever he doesn't take. No, I'll put it right there so he can see it and I can see it.
I brought mine.
Well, everybody else wasn't as, I'm sure wasn't as, okay, now you're on.
Yeah.
He's only got a minute left.
All right, good morning.
We'll compensate.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, thank you for your time this morning. My name is Matt Simmons. I'm with Consultants Collaborative, representing, sorry, good morning.
Oh, there we go.
Good morning.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, my name is Matt Simmons with Consultants Collaborative, representing the property owner for Cuba, giving a presentation this morning on our project along with some history as well. I will do my best to make this somewhat quick and brief through the process. We would like to reserve some time to answer any questions you guys may have or any comments that may be needing addressing from the public as well. Oh, there we go. Great. Quick history on the project. The city of San Marcos was incorporated in 1967. The sphere of influence for this area was adopted in 1979. And our property owner, Mr. Cuba, purchased the land in 1981. At that time, in San Marcos, the land was actually zoned for an industrial business park. And in the county of San Diego, it was zoned for 2-acre zoning instead of the 10-acre that it is today. Over the years, Mr. Berry kind of give you a quick history on the previous approvals and maps and expiration dates. So I won't go over those again, but I will show you some slides of what those projects look like in comparison to what our project looks like today. Yep. Do I need to hit it?
No, it was on another month.
Got it, got it.
Yeah, how do you click?
All right, this is the actual sphere of influence, and right here is the area that we're talking about. You can see Santa Fe Hills neighborhood down in the yellow area, county land in the white, and our property goes right through the middle of both of those. This sphere of influence, again, was adopted in 1979, it was updated in 1992, and it was reaffirmed in 2008. During that entire process, this land went from industrial and 2-acre zoning to zoning in the city of San Marcos for over 300 units, and still 2-acre zoning in the county, until most recently a 235 unit specific plan and 10 acres zoning in the county. Our last approval is the map and annexation that's in front of you guys now, where we have 189 units with 235 unit specific land zoning, and that county land designation at 10 acres. So when you look at the area in total, we are far below the allowed density that was originally zoned for this property. This is the configuration of land that's going to be annexed. It's actually only 124 acres that come in from the county to the city. There's a total of 151 acres in the county, but not all of it is annexed in because we did not want to change the sphere of influence boundary. We respected that the entire time. This is what the project looks like today, and you'll take note, the outline in yellow is the current project footprint and disturbance area. Obviously, the green or undisturbed areas will remain in open space. I do want to point out what would it look like if we were to respect the county zoning. This is the land adjacent to ours in the county, where the property owners have used it with the rights and abilities to do so for agricultural and other uses. But we are really trying to have some connectivity of this open space go through the property. We've actually added an additional 6.5 acres to this portion right here that will be restored as well as part of our agreement with the HL. So we now have 217 acres being dedicated open space. The project in EIR is counting at 210 acres. The other 6.5 acres are just additional land that we've given to the area as well. This is what the project looked like in 2002 when it had 230 homes. There was actually only 224 acres at the time. This piece of land was not part of it. That has now been purchased and added to the agreement and is part of the dedicated open space. And you can see there is no corridor here on the side. These were all lots going all the way through, so it completely blocked the access to the property. This is what it looked like originally back in 1988 with 275 homes on it. Again, zero connectivity of open space, lots on both sides, and this was Las Posas Road going all the way through to Buena Creek. It is now dedicated open space and restoring that creek back to natural habitat, and is not the alignment of future Las Posas Road. This is the county's general plan that regulates the area. Again, it matches the spheres and update dates for the property. And this is goal 2, which says we should be encouraging logical city annexations. I'm going to try to speed up a little bit to save a little bit of time here. And chapter 3, policy 1, which says we should be increasing city-county planning cooperation for these types of annexations. And we have worked long and hard with the county, the city, the wildlife agencies to get to the point where we are today. This is the project itself. In the general plan, this area here is what was dedicated or marked off to be conserved. And this slide here shows that we have actually stayed completely out of that, even though it's on our property. And again, we're only affecting the part of it. This is the county's letter that states that we've completed our land use issues and have asked us to do the annexation agreement that you guys have. I'm going to go ahead and save the rest of the time for Jim to rebut any questions or answer anything that comes up.
Are there any questions of the applicant? Commissioner Willis?
Yes, being in a wildfire area, what kind of access will fire trucks have? Is there just one entrance and for evacuation? Could you cover that?
Absolutely. Thank you for the question. There are 3 accesses. One is Las Posas Road, which comes into the front of the property through San Marcos. It's a 4-lane arterial collector that actually reduces down to 2 lanes as it enters our property, but is fully graded and paved at the 84 width. We also have emergency access that comes off of what would be the north side of the property going towards the county land. That's gated for emergencies only, but again graded at 84 feet wide and connects into the Robinson Lake area that brings you out to Buena Creek Road. We have a 3rd access point that ties into the Santa Fe Hills neighborhood on our southeast side of the project. That's a standard with paved residential road.
The fire trucks would have enough
Absolute access to all of those. Additionally, in the city of San Marcos Fire Protection Agency, they require 150 feet of clearing versus 100 feet of clearing, which is standard in most areas. And so we've been able to achieve that in all the appropriate locations throughout the property.
Any other questions? Commissioner Percy?
Thank you. I'm not sure my microphone is working. The switch doesn't move up or down.
I can hear you on the speaker.
Okay, great. This has been a proposed project for quite some time, depending on when you want to start the clock. Why is it? It's not a particularly big project, 189 units. So why has it taken so long to get to this point?
Yeah, so the original project, when it was approved, Las Posas Road was not constructed, so it didn't have access to the site. And although they had the maps, the time period expired before they could implement those maps. by the time the road got there. In the second phase, or the second entitlement, which would be early 2000s, the project was again approved at a higher density. That road was being completed, but they were not able to secure wildlife permits, which the Army Corps 404 permits, or Regional Water Quality Control Corps 404 permits, Army Corps permits take many years to achieve. And the map expired in 2005. They actually achieved those permits in 2008 based off of the specific plan that was still relevant. And then we remapped the current project into the footprint that was allowed in that impact. However, we had to reduce the footprint in density so we could do things like add 50 feet additional fire buffer to the property without increasing the line of impact coming into that open space. So we worked backwards inside of that footprint. And so it was really a series of improvements and permits that were involved for final completion. We were able to keep those permits alive in this entitlement. We obviously now Las Posas Road is 4 lanes right up to the property with water, sewer, power, drainage, everything is coming right up to the property there. And have the project entitled. And in fact, our entitlement clock for expiration on the map starts after the LAFCO hearing. So we've got it now staged appropriately to go right into grading and construction if things move forward appropriately. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? I have one. The roadway that's also being annexed, that's your secondary fire.
Can I go backwards on the slide to make sure I understand exactly what we're talking about? I want to make sure I'm giving you correct. If we go to the first aerial shot. And this one. So,
Or those straight up?
yeah, so this is Las Posas coming into the site here. And then here, we grade it and connect here. And we will actually follow this street here all the way up to Buena Creek. This is the current creek alignment that comes down to the property that will now be restored back to natural habitat. That was originally, back in the first plan we showed you, the alignment of Las Posas Road, and was proposed to actually go through, but that is no longer the case. And then the third emergency access point is right here in this residential neighborhood. In this connection here will be a DG surface so that the wildlife can freely cross back and forth, gated on this side and gated on this side. And that DG surface will be stabilized so that the fire trucks can handle a 75,000-pound weight to go across that, so that there should be no issues with emergency access.
Okay, so what road improvements are you proposing or are required to maintain going north?
From leaving our property, no road improvements. So we improved the Las Posas Road through the site into the edge of the property, and then we gated on both sides of that, so that if there is a fire, in reality, most of this neighborhood is going to be coming down Las Posas Road, not this area going up into the Buena Creek area. Once you get to Santa Fe Hills, it's a fairly protected 84-foot wide 4-lane road. It can handle quite a bit of traffic coming out and exit times.
Okay, so what's the status of those private roads at this point in time?
That they're there and in place, and that we would not be using them for any daily or regular traffic, and that we have legal easements and access across them as well. We're not seeking any additional legal access into easements.
Just a minute,
Thank you, Madam Chair. You may have covered this already. I apologize if we're going over
No problem.
already plowed ground.
I
And
went
what's the
quick, so-
overall philosophy of the owner of the property in terms of protecting the open and space ag land?
Well, I can tell you from his perspective that he's worked hard to protect and cluster the subdivision down, protecting that open space. His goal was more to connect it for connectivity of wildlife, not necessarily for the preservation of agricultural use. However, this property itself was not ever used for an agricultural use. It was not part of the Williamson Act or any other agricultural preserve. What he did not want to do is what we're seeing over here, where you've got full use of the property. You know, if we were to look back in a historical aerial photo, this land looked just like this land, covered in coastal sage and chaparral. Now it has horses on it, goats, and other animals. It has agricultural groves and other properties that are utilizing the land, again, within their rights, but certainly not protecting it for the environment.
Are there any future plans for that open space?
It is dedicated in a preserve in perpetuity with a non-wasting endowment. There's over $1 million being spent to restore the land and over $1 million being put in endowment to maintain it in perpetuity. And the County of San Diego will be the holder of that easement or owner of that easement so that their preserve is in fact enlarged. The 151 acres that are in the county, if you were to go through a preservation or conservation subdivision map, you would preserve about 75% of that, so about 125 acres. We're adding 217 acres to the preserve, and the county gets to keep that because they're the holder of the easement.
So do you see this project as a hedge towards even more dense development if this project didn't go through?
I'm sorry?
You see this as a hedge against future development, another development, if this project didn't go through?
If this project didn't
You
go
weren't
through,
protecting as much open space.
I think you would actually see very fragmented open space. I would assume the property owner would probably do something in the city of San Marcos with the, half of it is currently in the city of San Marcos. They would have to figure out a new map on that and what could be built on that. And the land in the county has 11 legal parcels. If you do a conservation subdivision map on 150 acres, you could get 15 lots, but you would have to conserve and protect and go through a very lengthy process to do so. My assumption would be that you could sell the 11 legal lots and it would look just like the land to the side.
Yes, there's no mitigation being done offsite, it's all
All
within the
mitigation
project.
is done within a project footprint or contiguous ownership, just to be clear. This parcel up here on the other side of the water authority trail is owned by the property owner. It is not part of the specific plan area, but it is contiguous and shown on the map and being dedicated with the open space. So it is all contiguous and same ownership, but not part of the specific plan area, which is a land use technicality, but what I want you to be clear.
But it's also protected, is that correct?
Absolutely, yeah. All 217 acres are protected for.
What is the response time for emergency medical and fire to
There's
the
actually,
project?
it's under 5 minutes or about 5 minutes coming from San Marcos. They would come straight down Las Posas Road from Firebird Lane on Mission Road. But it exceeds the county response time and it's more than adequate for the city of San Marcos response.
And Vista's response time is what?
I don't know that they've actually done it because there's not a driving access currently to it, but it would be in the teens of minutes or longer.
Well, under automatic aid, of course, they would come in
They would come in,
as well as other agencies.
they probably would if there was something significant going on, but San Marcos would be there.
Okay.
In either scenario, whether it's annexed or not, San Marcos would be there significantly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions of the applicant? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
At this time, I have 2 other speaker slips in support, but they do not wish to speak, and one is the owner, Farouk Kuba. You don't want to speak, is that correct?
No, I'm fine.
Okay. And then the other is Ms. Brown. Oh, Chris. Okay. And you don't want to speak. Okay. Okay. Moving on, Stephen Abbott.
Good morning, members of the commission. My name is Steve Abbott, Chair of Fire District, City of County Fire District Association. I'll keep this brief. Just wanted to speak very briefly. Commend LAFCO staff for bringing us into the process and explaining the rationale behind this and the other associated projects. So I should say Robert and Keen and John's not here, but thanks to all of you. Now, secondary, this project in particular makes a lot of sense. It's a good example of you can't get there from here. So again, just want to speak very briefly in support of the project. That's all I'm saying.
Any questions? Thank you. We have the next speaker, Sandra Farrell. And there's 3 minutes.
Let's see, right the first slide, please. Yeah, once again, I'm speaking as a member of the public and not a member of the Twin Oaks Valley Community Sponsor Group. You know, I've watched for the past 20 years as the county has repeatedly opposed this project. And they did so because the project is located between 2 large steep slope areas and straddles Oglehead Creek. They were concerned about high fire danger, incompatibility with both the previous and current county general plan. And the area had always, under the county, had the A70, which was 2 acres slope dependent, 2 to 4 acres slope dependent. So because the steep slope is considerably less in terms of use. Under the current general plan, the rural lands 10, semi-rural 10, it does have to have a clustered conservation subdivision, and the design standards under the county allow for use like doing multiple units in the property. The Board of Supervisors a few months ago during the general plan amendment update denied Mr. Kuba his property-specific request to increase the use to one that was similar to what you see on the San Marcos Highlands. And my concern, although he seems to have addressed some of the environmental issues, is that by proving the annexation, LAFCO sets a precedent that says it's okay for a jurisdiction to completely disregard the county general plan. As you can see by the project here, you can see where its location. The areas to the east are all county rural. The areas to the north are county rural. The up here is the Gnatcatcher Preserve area. So since so much of Twin Oaks area is within a sphere of influence, my concern is that if the annexation goes forward, it starts to start a domino effect with incompatible uses where the county's general plan is disregarded and is essentially meaningless, which eventually could end the Twin Oaks community. The annexation is for use that is significantly more dense than the adjacent rural areas. And this is the Kuba property, this is Robin Hood Ranches, and this is Morganville Heights, and it's considerably different. This is Robin Hood Ranches, this is Santa Fe Hills that abuts it on one edge. This is the Twin Oaks Valley community, this is what it looks like, and this is the city of San Marcos. This is the Twin Oaks, this is the type of businesses that are in Twin Oaks, like the Wind Creek nursery there, and then the Twin Oaks schoolhouse, and this is the types of businesses that are in San Marcos. So it's different. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Thank you. The next speaker is Mary Clark.
Good morning. Chair Mackenzie, commissioners. I'm Mary Clark, and I represent the Sierra Club San Diego on the North County Multiple Species Conservation Plan. And I'm here to speak to you today. The Sierra Club San Diego has opposed this project for many years, and primarily at this point, our opposition is due to the fact that the land use proposed in the San Marcos Highland project in the county is contrary to the county's general plan. About half of the project is in the county, and the county's general plan currently is SR10, semi-rural, 1 dwelling unit per 10 acres. The development proposes considerable more density than that in the county portion. It works out to be about 1 dwelling unit per acre, which is 10 times more than the county's general plan. And secondly, we are opposed to this project because the project site is currently undeveloped open space and is covered with valuable wildlife habitat and wetlands vegetation. According to the LAFCO website, one of the 4 goals of the LAFCO Commission is to discourage premature conversion of prime agricultural and open space land to urban uses. This is exactly what the Highlands Project will do, convert valuable open space to urban uses. And we feel that on this basis, the commission should deny the annexation. Regarding the incompatible land use, in a memorandum dated November 4th this year, the commissioners, Keene Simmons and Robert Berry, provide additional discussion on local policies in CEQA. And that memorandum starts on page 133 of the staff report. Under consideration of local policies, they point out that the county and San Marcos both contemplate residential uses for the affected territory, although at markedly different density levels. The memorandum refers to legislative policies L102 and L107. L102 under policy states, encourage cities which are adjacent to unincorporated territories to reconcile incompatible general plan land use elements with the County of San Diego. This reconciliation has not taken place. Also, L102 under background states, when there are potential jurisdictional issues associated with proposed or pending jurisdictional changes, LAFCO staff has historically encouraged the lead agency and applicant to consult with all affected jurisdictions and interested parties to identify, discuss, and resolve jurisdictional issues prior to LAFCO submittal. Proposal-related jurisdictional issues may involve questions about community character, which is an issue, and/or cohesion, the ability of the agency to extend public services, potential environmental impacts, appropriate transition areas between jurisdictions, and other issues such as that. In addition, policy L102 states the consultation process described in provision number 1 should identify any jurisdictional issues or concerns related to differing development standards, existing and/or planned use, land uses and zoning, including densities, community character, and appropriate jurisdictional transition areas. So this consultation and reconciliation with the county general plan has not taken place. And there are serious concerns about the existing and/or planned land uses and zoning, including densities, community character, and appropriate jurisdictional transition areas. These issues remain. Secondly, one of the LAFCO goals is to discourage premature conversion of prime agriculture and open space lands to urban uses. And this project will convert open space to urban uses. It will remove about 77 acres of coastal sage scrub, which is habitat for the threatened California gnatcatcher, and replace it with about 136 dwelling units in the county portion of the project. We feel that this conversion is premature because the project site is isolated from nearby suburban development by Agua Hidalgo Creek, which flows from the northeast to the southwest through the property. And there is no road that serves the proposed development currently in the county portion of the project.
Excuse me, Ms. Carol, you have an organized presentation.
Yes,
Maybe a few minutes for your counterpart.
Okay. I would like to make one other point on the annexation agreement was signed by the county and the wildlife agencies. This was between the county and the wildlife agencies, and it dealt just with the North County Multiple Species Conservation Plan. It did not deal with any of the other issues like community character and land use designations.
Thank you. Mr. Cursor?
Thank you. Good morning. My name is George Corser.
I think she left you about 2 minutes.
I'm with Sierra Club San Diego. I represent the Conservation Committee. And what we see from this project is a sprawl project. And it's advancing under the auspices here of a so-called responsible agency. And this is effectively promotes market timing, and it's really an overt jurisdiction shopping situation at 16 times the zone density. Responsible people are asking questions. How does LAFCO do this? how do you disregard the County of San Diego's general plan? And the primary responsibility of LAFCO is to discourage sprawl growth in green fields, which this is. A Superior Court judge mentions that LAFCOs were created by the legislature for a special purpose to discourage urban sprawl. The county allows 15 homes, LAFCO 136, and reorganization timing couldn't be worse. This is a blatant disregard of the GP. We feel confident that the Attorney General is not aware of these proposed massive upscale. Effectively, as a responsible agency, LAFCO is acting as the agents of sprawl zoning. LAFCO is bypassing judicial enjoyment of the county, and instead, LAFCO's actions are entitling development. This is extrajudicial. This is premature action. This is jurisdiction shuffling. We have county correspondence that demonstrates San Marcos was relying on coverage from the county's climate action plan to reach California GHG's targets. And the county is presently under court order, and the cap is defunct. The county's cap is set aside and by the Superior Court. And the judge mentions, let a writ of mandate issue forthwith. Directing respondent County of San Diego set aside its February 14, 2013 approvals of the cap and the SEIR. So LAFCO is also bypassing the county's highly detailed general plan amendment process in this approval. You are dodging the county's own standards and requirements of review, and you're defeating, effectively, the county's general plan.
Could you wrap up, please?
I sure will.
Thank you.
Thank you. Folks, this is premature. The MSNCP and the NCHCP are not complete. Thank you very much.
Thank you. This time I have a speaker slip from Tom Kiamura. And there's a time for you.
Good morning. Yes, I can see it. Good morning, Chairperson and Commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Just this morning, I learned about the hospital district boundaries not being addressed. As full disclosure, I am on the board of Palomar Health, but I'm not speaking as a member of the board, but as a private citizen. My concern is that it seems like this is being rushed, that things haven't been fully answered in terms of the hospital district boundaries haven't been addressed. I think they should be addressed first before being voted on. One of the commissioners asked, why did this project take so long? Because it's a bad project. The community doesn't appreciate it. There's a lot of risk involved. And you'll read it in the various responses and letters and testimonials that people have provided over the years. The County of San Diego has also complained and it has several concerns in terms of the steep slopes and other issues when general plan amendments have been asked for. The Twin Oaks Valley Communities area where I live, we feel underrepresented. You saw a slide referencing that it incorporated some of the plans for the Twin Oaks area. It was lumped into the North County Metro. We're not part of this giant city called North County Metro. We are a distinct area called Twin Valley Oaks. We have our own planning group. But if you look at the area in terms of our representation, or whenever people want to expand that boundary, we've been told we have to wait for the community plan to be developed in order for additional people that are not currently represented and have no representation on the planning board, they would have to wait for that community plan. That's been over 10 years. I don't know when it's going to happen. Traffic TIF funds are collected, but they're never spent on anything in Twin Valley Oaks. Park fees are collected, they're never spent on any parks because we don't have parks. We want the definition of parks to be defined differently, but it doesn't get addressed. Bottom line is, as LAFCO, you have a duty to make sure that the community nature, the sphere of influence, doesn't negatively impact the community of the county. And the pictures that have been shown shows how the rural nature of the county looks like currently. It is not dense, as Jim Desmond knows, and because he is mayor of San Marcos. It is a very well-run city and has high density. But the county, on the other hand, does not. So please keep that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's the end of the speaker slips. I have one, Jim Simmons, and I think you were left with about 2 minutes.
Excuse me, you don't have my top or probably in the registers.
Do I have, I'm sorry.
Okay.
One more, I'm sorry, excuse me. My
Thank
phone.
you.
3 minutes, yes.
Hi. Hi, good morning. I'm Heinz Hafner. I live in the Robin Hood Ranches since 30 years. I built my house there. And I want to specifically talk about evacuation. Today, it reminded me this morning when I came down here, tried to go on Bonnecourt Road, and then go all the way up Twin Oaks Valley Road to 15. The traffic from 15 all the way down to Bonnecourt Road, all the way over to 78, bumper to bumper in the morning. In the evening, it's bumper to bumper going the other way because the commuters figured out they can cut off 78 and everything else. So let me tell you what I observed in the 30 years that I lived there. And that we have today, in my experience as a resident, paradise disaster already waiting to happen every day. And here's why. Walnut Creek is 2 lanes, very small. Utilities on one side or both sides, trees. Our residents, we have 23 homes there, 3 to 10, 12 acres. Private roads. The south side of that is highland development. I have lived through this. And I think you talked about it, they showed about the gate. So, the experience that I had was through San Anita's fire, when they had to evacuate the horses. I think you remember. I happened to come home from Twin Oaks and wanted to go on Bonnet Creek. When I got to the corner, I see literally hundreds of trailers and cars stacked on Bonnet Creek Road, coming from the 15 and also coming from 78 in San Marcos. The reason why they were good Samaritans, they wanted to help the horses to evacuate. A drive from that corner to my house on Robin Hood Road normally takes about 2-3 minutes. 56 minutes. I was sitting there. Now, tractor trailers. While I was sitting there and saying, wait a minute, what happens if a fire is, or somebody gets sick, the road's not even big enough to put the emergency vehicles through? And while I was sitting, a 45-foot trailer pulled out from Altman nursery, all right? It took him 10 minutes to wait until he can make the turn to go on to Bonnecourt Road, locked. So that's the situation. Anything you have there is a disaster waiting to happen. Before you even add the Highlands. Now you're at the Highlands, you want to open the gates in the back, what they talked about. They come to our roads, private roads, which are not even big enough for, in some cases, not even big enough for a fire truck. And that's serviced, by the way, by this stuff. They can't even come up there if anything happens, right? And then if those people then really evacuate through there, then we can't evacuate because they get to Bonnecourt Road and they can't go left or right. So my suggestion, huh?
I think your time is
My
up.
suggestion to you is before you approve it, improve Bonner Creek Road, improve Twin Oaks to 4 lanes. Then you can decide how many units you can build somewhere, because then you can evacuate the people. Now, you're not, and you may have that, as well as the Vista Council of Vista and San Marcos on their conscience, if people are burning in their car, and that's what's going to happen.
Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, Mr. Simmons, would you like to take your 2 minutes?
Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. I think we've got to work a little bit backwards here. One of the things that we have to recognize is we've been through a process with the county where they did raise some issues, and they have noted those issues. They wrote a letter back in 2016 and said the EIR has addressed the issues. They have addressed the traffic issues, the character issues, the density issues. However, it has not addressed the habitat issue. And they asked the city to put a condition on to address those issues, which the city did. And we have now complied with that requirement. So all the issues raised by the county have been answered through the EIR, the design of the project, and the process. There will be no traffic going north in this project unless there's an emergency. And for the most part, the fires come from the northwest to the south. So people who will be leaving will be coming through our project, not the other way around. If there's a process that goes the other way, that means the fire's going the other way. So it opens up the north for people to escape. So it's not going to be the kind of a disaster that has been described. That has been studied in the EIR. Those issues have been resolved, and the impacts that were necessary to mitigate for it have been mitigated. So we have a county board that has approved an annexation agreement. We have made an agreement with Fish and Wildlife with both the state and the feds. We have made an agreement with Army Corps of Engineers. And we had the Board of Supervisors on the 16th of October certify that agreement and say to you that the concerns that have been raised by the people here today and through the process of the EIR have been resolved. So I want to emphasize that this is not a land use discussion. This is a decision as to whether or not we meet the criteria of L107 and L102. L107 says if an agency has a concern, they should register it in writing to this body and tell you what that concern is. The county did just the opposite. They sent you a letter that said, we have no concerns. The board voted on that and told you that this process should go forward. I would answer any questions that we have brought here today.
Thank you. Are there any questions, Mr. Simmons? Very good, thank you. Are there any questions of staff before I close the hearing?
Yes, I do. Keene or Robert, in terms of the spirit influence for the medical districts, is that something that will be, will that be, because is it Tom Kiamora, is that true? I hear his concern with that. Are we going to be updating the spirit influence soon thereafter? I guess it's time.
We did a comprehensive sphere review and service review for the healthcare districts about 4 years ago. Part of the healthcare district law requires that if you're going to have incorporated territory, you need to have all of the incorporated territory. So what we recognized is that there were some discrepancies between the incorporated territories of Carlsbad, Oceanside, San Marcos, Vista, in and out of the healthcare district. So we did a big reorganization to realign Carlsbad, Oceanside, and Vista's boundaries. The boundary between San Marcos and Vista is problematic because of Palomar Health's bonded indebtedness and their special benefit assessment on those properties. So part of the reorganization to go between Tri-City and Palomar involves addressing that special benefit assessment tax that would either accompany the detachment or be applied to the annexing territories. We want to deal with that more comprehensively because there's a lot of territory between Vista and San Marcos in and out of Palomar and Tri-City. So we feel the best way to address that is a comprehensive move to look at the entirety of the overlap of those two boundaries and how we can reconcile that with the special benefit assessment for the hospital at Escondido.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Okay. Hearing none, I will close the public hearing. Is there any comments? Yes.
Yes,
Thank you, Madam Chair. Appreciate all the comments on this item here, and to the gentleman on Robin Hood Lane, I would love to widen Buena Creek Road. That would be one of my priorities. But anyway, we at LAFCO, we're responsible for overseeing the changes to local government boundaries, including the annexation and actually even the detachment jurisdictions. The LAFCO Commission, we're obligated to analyze the spheres of influence for development proposals, including jurisdictional changes. These spheres of influence are implemented to ensure municipal services and prevent duplication of service delivery. LAFCO, we're not responsible for the evaluation of the project's merits. We're here to evaluate the annexation of the sphere of influence. San Marcos Highland Project is located within San Marcos sphere of influence, and the project's municipal services will be provided by the City of San Marcos and the Valacitas Water District. The annexation agreement was approved by the County Board of Supervisors. It was approved by the City of San Marcos, City Council, the Fish and Wildlife Agencies, the Regional Water Quality Control Board, the Army Corps of Engineers have all approved the project. The project complies with the county's request, with the county's draft North County MSCP, and was verified with a letter by county staff at a Board of Supervisors meeting. The project has a certified EIR, environmental findings have been made. With this plan, the county is going to receive 93 acres of biological open space to perpetuity. Only 50 acres of this 293 acre site is going to be developed, leaving over 80% of this project open space preserves. As you saw it in a couple of the slides, when you have the 1 to 15 or 1 to 10 acres, the land all gets used up. In this plan, you've got 80% of the land open space forever. In addition, it is mentioned it's going to have a DG road to Buena Creek Road to enhance the fire safety, which right now there isn't that much, and this is going to enhance that fire safety. So because this project is within the San Marcos sphere of influence, and municipal services provided by this are going to be provided by the city, and because it's been approved by all these other agencies, I'd like to move to approve staff recommendation.
Is there a second?
I will second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion? Roll call.
Commissioner Vanderland?
Who?
Vanderland.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
Commissioner Kersey?
Aye.
Commissioner McKenzie?
Aye.
Commissioner Willis?
Yes.
Commissioner Desmond?
Yes.
Commissioner McNamara?
McNamara.
McNamara.
6 in favor, 0 opposed. The motion passes.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We still have Commissioner Desmond is exiting. Do we still have a forum?
Yes.
I just want to know the record. We do have a forum.
Yes, Chair.
Thank you. Item 6B is the proposed Hollow Glen change of organization, and there is a staff report. Good morning.
Good morning. I am also not, okay, I ruined everything, sorry. Going back to the map. Okay, thank you, dear. Okay, good morning. This is a very straightforward annexation. It requires a conforming sphere amendment, and that's why it is in front of you as a public hearing item. The Hollow Glen change of organization annexation to Julian Community Services District comprises of the landowner, the County of San Diego, seeking annexation of 0.7 acres of unincorporated territory to Julian CSD for water service to enable the operations of fire sprinklers. This parcel outlined in the red is already developed with a 1,600 square foot Caltrans storage facility for road repair maintenance materials. The district has adequate capacity. There is some pause over their financial standing. This was outlined in the Julian MSR published earlier this year. However, this project has no new fixed costs, so staff recommends standard approval with one modification to include the public right-of-way and a conforming sphere amendment. And that is my short presentation.
Thank you for being succinct. Is there any question before you leave? Is there any question, Ms. Levito? Okay. At this time, I will open the public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak to this agenda item? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Any further discussion? Is there a motion?
Move for approval.
I have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Commissioner Vanderlin,
Yes.
Commissioner Kersey,
Aye.
Commissioner McKenzie,
Yes.
Commissioner Willis, Commissioner McNamara.
Aye.
5 in favor, 0 opposed. The motion passes.
Thank you. Item number 7, business items. Report on attendance at the 2019 LAFCO Annual Conference in Beacon downtown Sacramento this last week. Barry, you want to start? And it has to be more than I went, I saw.
I know that. I'm just so happy that I went. It was a great experience. I got to vent in a couple meetings to express some things that I liked and didn't like, and our breakout session was very good. Kevin was there, and as a matter of fact, I want to go next year. And it was great to get to know Linda better and Erica better. And it was just it was kind of a bonding thing. One of the things that I actually liked the most was getting to know the other LAFCO members. Met one board of supervisors that sounded a lot like I think it was, and encouraged me to really think to the future and how we need to address potential problems that might come up, such as drought and so forth. So I'm encouraged by the experience, and I'm just real glad.
Thank you. Commissioner Mayor?
Down is on, okay. First of all, I want to thank Keen and his great staff. My wife and I attended the conference. It's probably about the 20th one I've attended. Great staff support. They shepherded us around, pointed us in the direction of where we should go, reminded us when we didn't get there as well. So thank you for that. And Keen, thanks for allowing your staff to do that work for us. The sessions I thought were very good. The conference was well attended. The item that we talked about at the last meeting regarding a potential major conflict at the conference kind of went without sizzle. That was the vote on the potential increase in the fees, the annual fees for Cal LAFCO. I think our increase is how much? About $1,600. Is that right, King?
About $1,600 first year, yes.
And others, which in the scale of things with our budget is certainly an impact, but not a huge one. Some of the other smaller agencies received a major increase, as much as $1,000 for smaller agencies, which can't afford to do that. The anomaly there is that the smaller agencies are the ones who benefit the most from Cal LAFCO, supported by the larger agencies. So in our we have a southern region. Southern region, I think, out of the 4 others, is one of the most organized and best, have more cohesiveness there than the others do. So our session we had regarding the due structure, although some of our members had been highly involved throughout the whole process and weren't really happy with the overall due structure, supported it for the good of the cause, if you will. So as far as the election goes, we elect our representatives from our region to serve on the Cal LAFCO board. Our chair, Joe McKenzie, was reelected, as was the city representative, Cheryl Brothers, from the city of Orange. So the new LAFCO chair is a guy named Mike Kelly from Imperial. He's quite a jokester. He has quite a background. He's been in law enforcement and other things. So it'd be kind of a hot pistol to have for our LAFCO for this coming year. During the award ceremony every year, there's an award ceremony where the awards are put out to members of the LAFCO Commission and as well as the staff. Last year, Mike Gott received the Mike Gotch Award, which is, from my perspective, highly coveted. Mike Gotch was the executive director of San Diego LAFCO many years ago. He's also responsible for a lot of the legislation that we currently serve as our bylaws and our guide path. So that was great for Mike. The guy who's kind of goes unsung, his name is Erg, I forget his last name. He's from Imperial County. He's quite a guy. He hosted a meeting, he has a boat in the harbor here in San Diego, hosted one of our meetings here, and he got an award for kind of being the superstar of LAFCO, both staff and elected officials. He actually put out some of his own money to help fund a proposal to clean things up in Imperial County, and just a very humble guy. So overall, from my perspective at least, one of the better conferences we've had. Next year we'll be in, we'll have to kind of scale down a little bit and go to Monterey versus being in Sacramento. One of the interesting things that happened during the conference is we had the opportunity, if you will, and I say opportunity, to walk across the street to the Capitol. Our conference site was right across the street. Well, it turns out that the reason that we had to go there because there was a labor dispute going on at the hotel. So one of the representatives, in fact, she's now supervisor for Los Angeles County, has also been a legislator and has done some really good things for special districts and cities. Turns out that because of the labor dispute, she didn't want the legislators coming across to the hotel. So we all frog marched over there. Most of us found our way. And it was interesting. I'd been there several times before, but it was interesting. I didn't realize it was that plowed till afterwards. One of the members of our southern group was highly incensed about the fact that he got caught up in a political agenda and certainly expressed his desire. So I thank LAFCO, the commission, for allowing us to go. And as Barry pointed out, a big part of that is getting to know other people. You hear about them, you don't know about them, especially some of the smaller counties, and interesting to get their perspective, especially from, well, at least my conservative perspective, is that there's you run into a lot of people who don't share that same attitude. So there's some, if you want to bend into the political decisions, you can have a pretty hard time. So thanks, Deanne.
I did want to add on that, just one last thing. On the dues, it was overwhelmingly approved for the dues.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. The vote was 38 to 10. And those
10 not showing.
Yeah, 10 not showing. Not everyone was there, so you can only vote if you're present. But thank you, Barry, for that. After all the controversy, all the up and down, I thought there might be more no votes than there were. And to their credit, they didn't jump up and down and come in with picket signs or anything like that. So we should be up and running at least for another year. Thanks, Barry.
Thank you, Commissioner Vanderlyn. Okay, he basically said everything I was going to say, but I will continue with the full board. Is that we have a progression. So once you start as treasurer, then you're expected to move up to secretary, vice chair, and then chair. And then really the only one that gets voted on after that group is the treasurer who moves up. And that was Bill Conway from, I think he's from Butte, but he's from the north. And what I found out, which I didn't know, is they go north-south coastal. So since the secretary is she's county supervisor from Central, then it had to go north. So Bill Conley is from the north, so he was elected as treasurer. Secretary is Sheila Frentens, and she's El Dorado County, and she's, like I said, supervisor, and vice chair is Michael Kelly. He's from Imperial County. And then the chair moved up from vice, and that's Michael McGill, and he's from the coastal area. We did have a caucus. We have a caucus the first morning, and that is with each area. And our southern region takes in the 6 counties. Everyone was represented at that, and we did the vote, and then we did have a discussion on the dues, and as Commissioner Manlett said, everybody agreed with it, some reluctantly, but knowing that we need a dues increase because that's the only steady income that you have, that you can count on to create your budget. You can't go on the pie in the sky that you think you're going to get, X number of dollars from your other various meetings and conferences. So that was really the reason for the dues increase. No one likes dues increases. So we did have those that, that did object. And then at the board meeting, I guess there was several who wanted to see, they wanted the formula, and they wanted to be able to search and manipulate the formula to see what they could get. We left it at, after much discussion, did leave it at, let them come, the formula is on the website under the member section, and if they want anything else, then to bring it to the executive officer and then to the board. The other one was, no one mentioned that, was that when we did go over the capital, that was Senator Gibson and Supervisor Hahn and the EO from LA County, and it was basically a long discussion on where Sativa was. And if you're familiar with Sativa, it's a small water district right there in LA County, basically adjacent to Compton, and they were in the newspaper. They have the brown water. But it wasn't until 2000, which is interesting because it wasn't until 2007 that the State Water Board got involved in it. And then they got involved in that Sativa they still did not have any contaminants that were in the list of contaminants. They might have brown water, but it was still safe to drink. So that was their position, and that's why there was no order earlier than 2017. They finally were able to go through the process. We had to have special legislation to dissolve the district, and now the county has taken it over, and according to them, they're spending about $10,000 a day to bring it up to par. Interesting, the state board did offer to work with them to get state funding to be able to upgrade their pipes and so forth, because that's where all the contaminants were, because it was not a looped system, so therefore they could not flush the entire system at one time, and all that mucky duck was still sitting there in the pipes. But they didn't get those grants because you need audited figures. Come to find out, they hadn't done an audit in at least the last 3 years. So that was one of the other nails in the coffin for the dissolution of that particular agency. And that's about it.
And there was no consistent testing either. They didn't do consistent testing.
I can't hear you.
They weren't testing.
I got half of it. What?
Testing of the water. They weren't doing consistent testing.
Well, they were testing it, but they were not testing it on a regular basis as required by the regional water quality control board. And so they were always on their back for the last 3 years to get the testing in. As I said, that was the last nail in the coffin for Sativa.
At the risk of having this discussion go on longer than the public hearing on the San Marcos issue, there is one thing, heads up for commissioners. It appears that there's going to be a push to have LAFCO do more stuff, get involved in environmental, whatever they're calling it now, impact issues as part of the, looking at the MSRs. And right now, with the MSRs, what kicked off our municipal service reviews was what kicked off the Sativa water issue. It puts more emphasis on the MSRs that we're going to be doing in the future, not only looking at can they provide the service, are they economical and efficient in doing it, but also the sustainability as it goes down the road. So I think our push, at least from the LAFCO perspective, is going to be, if you're going to give us more responsibility, then you need to give us more authority. So that, of course, would take a legislative change. But I think I see it shifting where it's almost like LAFCO could become the cleanup crew, and for political issues and not necessarily for the good of the order. So that concerns me a little bit. And we do have a legislative team that works on legislation, and they're certainly considering that. So I think instead of LAFCO's becoming less busy, I think we're going to become more busy and maybe more controversial. Thank you.
Okay, that takes care of our report. Let's go on to the executive officer's report.
Thank you, Commission. So I have 3 items for you. So one is the staffing. So after about 20 years, you may notice we don't have John Traylor in the audience. John has been our fire consultant since he retired as fire chief from Coronado many, many years ago. John has retired again and is now living up in Reno. So our loss, but Reno's gain, and we will certainly look to bring in another voice to help us, because fire protection certainly is a big issue for us here at LAFCO. And then also, we only had him for about 9 months, but he did his contributions. Alex Vidal, who was a young analyst from Kentucky, he had reasons to have to go back home to Kentucky. So we got a municipal service review out of Alex, but he is back in the blue state, and we wish him well. We'll be doing a recruitment to fill Alex's seat shortly, but in the interim, I'm bringing in Plan West Partners to help us with some of our work. They do a lot of LAFCO work up in the Bay Area, and hopefully we'll start seeing their presence in the next few meetings. And then 2 other items, Commission. With the help of staff, we held the first cities, not special district, but cities advisory committee meeting for the first time, at least since 2002. Tammy's convinced we met in 2002. It may have been longer, but all the city managers or their planning directors attended. It was well received, so we were happy with that. And then finally, all of you will have a newspaper article before you with respect to the community of La Jolla. So staff generally tries to give the commission a heads up on big proposals as they come forward. Staff has been talking to this La Jolla group for about 6 months, and we weren't quite sure how serious they were about their desire to incorporate, right? You get calls, and we're just not quite sure until someone writes a check. Well, they wrote about an $80,000 check, so we're assuming they're somewhat real at this point. So by way of your unique policies, San Diego is unique in this. We require an extra step before filing an incorporation, and that is for proponents to prepare essentially a draft fiscal analysis. No other LAFCO requires that, and it's to help weed out those who are serious versus those who are just kind of testing the wind, if you will. So we assume at some level this will start generating momentum, and I assume you will see this in some form coming forward, and again, in the future. It's unique though, because unlike most incorporations, in order for La Jolla to incorporate, not only would they have to get their constituents to say yes, but they would have to get the voters of the city of San Diego to also say yes. And that, of course, is a high threshold, and that's what ultimately stopped for San Fernando a few years ago from incorporating. So that is all.
Yes. Harry. Down.
Interesting thing about La Jolla is where you set the boundaries, and because of unusual circumstance, the boundaries of La Jolla would seem in the minds of some to be their zip code. La Jolla is the only basically community within the city of San Diego that has a real zip code, and what caused that was that the Scripps Hospital was an endowed hospital in La Jolla by Ellen Browning Scripps, and one of the requirements was that it would stay in La Jolla. Well, Scripps soon outlived the land that they had in La Jolla, and they wanted to expand. And so, as you know, they're well outside now what is known as the village of La Jolla. And the reason that it's there is because when they wanted to expand, they couldn't expand in the existing La Jolla as we know it. So they decided that how could we comply with the endowment? And so what they did was they made a deal with the post office to expand La Jolla Zip, and it expands well into the Golden Triangle, where the hospitals are located today off Genesee. So That's going to be an interesting aspect of how you define the boundaries of La Jolla.
Any other comments? Okay, at this time then, we're on to the commissioners' announcements and requests for future agenda items. I'll start with Commissioner Mathis and go around. Anything you go to the order?
Well, everything I know of is for the good of the order. Not sure it's relevant.
Thank you. Commissioner McNamara, Commissioner Willis. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you very much. I really apologize for being late. I had a commitment at City Hall and part of the Bloomberg Harvard City Initiative. And we have our classes virtually, and so it's something that it was the last class of the session, so I couldn't miss it. But I apologize for being late.
You missed all the fun.
I know. I came here all the way here
All the way
for the
from
San
here
Marcos.
for,
It's over.
Sorry. Commissioner Randall?
Just a comment about Harry Mathis. I don't know how much you know about Harry. He's a captain, I think, in the Navy or something even higher than that. Former city council member. Were you the mayor of San Diego at one point?
No, I was on city council.
They should.
Yeah, on the city council. When it comes to quote tribal lore or history, go to Harry. He's the guy that knows where the dark closets are and what's happened in the past. He's an extremely knowledgeable guy. We're very fortunate to have him. Thanks, Harry.
Thank you, and I think you give me far too much credit.
Okay, and I have nothing, thank you. At this time, we'll go into closed sessions. We have 4 items. I understand our attorney is going to ask for one of them to be pulled, and then I'll go into closed session.
Yes, we're going to pull 10C.
Okay, item 10C will be pulled from the closed session. So we'll go into closed sessions on items A, B, and D under Government Code Sections 54956.9 and D1 and D4, or D2, I'm sorry. So, you're on.
Well,